reinforcing fleece to be cut to suit beforehand. Always make sure that all junctions are reinforced with a double layer of fleece. For the waterproofing around the vent, cut a piece of fleece from the roll to fit exactly with about 50 millimeters overlap. Place the fleece against the vent to see where the material has to be folded. Now cut the part against the vent into strips, each about 50 millimeters wide. Place against the vent once again. The overlapping can be clearly seen. Cut out the complementary second piece of fleece in the shape of a square. Fold this square twice in the middle, so that you can cut all 4 corners equally in one operation. Cut the opposite corner in order to mark the middle of the piece of fleece. Open out the fleece again, place it over the vent and draw a circle. The radius must be at least 10 millimeters smaller than that of the vent in order to guarantee a double layer of reinforcement. Now carefully cut out the circle. As a check, place both pieces of fleece over the vent. The double layer of reinforcement is clearly visible. The edges of the roof also need special treatment. For reinforcing the internal and external corners of the roof, first cut out a square of fleece. Again, fold this twice to form a small square. Now cut the piece of fleece along the 3 folds. Cut out a circle and make 1 cut from the edge to the center. In this way, you can produce 4 equal fleece circles for internal and external corners in just one operation. These pieces will be used later for reinforcing internal and external corners. Metal parts such as the safety harness fixings must always be rubbed down and then cleaned with cleaning agent MEK. Don't forget to wear gloves when doing this. Now prepare pieces of fleece for the safety harness fixings. Again, we need 4 small circles of fleece to cover the screws. Stretch these slightly in the middle with your thumb so that they form small hoods, which can later be placed over the screws. Cut the piece of fleece for wrapping the safety harness fixing post exactly as for the vent. Again, here, allow for 50 millimeter overlaps. The second piece of fleece is again a square folded twice about the middle. Round off the corners and mark the center. Place over the safety harness fixing post and, like before, draw a circle the radius of which is at least 10 millimeters smaller than that of the post. Cut out the circle. To check, place the fleece over the safety harness fixing. Both pieces together guarantee a double layer of reinforcement at the transition. Now the drainage outlet. First, clean thoroughly with cleaning agent MEK. Trapezoidal strips of fleece are best for waterproofing the transition to the drainage outlet. We need about 15 to 20 of these strips for an outlet of this size. To check this, place the strips in position so that they all overlap equally. Now the duct for the air conditioning system that we saw at the start. In order to increase the surface area, rub down the substrate. Remove all substances that could reduce the adhesion. Once again, cut the roll of fleece to suit and cut pieces of fleece for the corners. Non-absorbent substrates do not usually require priming. However, depending on the loads to be expected, details can be given a coat of solvent-free Camperol primer first. we recommend that you wear gloves and goggles when working with these materials. First, stir component A with a wooden stick. Then knock a hole in the side of the container holding component B. Another hole to admit air ensures that the container is emptied completely. Afterwards, mix both components together to form a homogeneous mass. Pouring the primer into another container guarantees that both liquids are properly and completely mixed together. Make sure that the container is emptied completely. Briefly stir the primer again in its new container. Start by priming the edge of the roof. A nylon roller or a brush is suitable for applying the primer. Work quartz sand into the newly applied primer in order to increase the surface area. The waterproofing work can be carried out after the primer has cured. The drainage outlet in this case is being treated with Kemperol R primer. To do this, simply remove the dividing strip from the sachet and mix together components A and B thoroughly while still in the sachet. Cut open the sachet and apply the primer. Make sure that the primer does not run into the drainage outlet. Apply the primer inside and outside. Afterwards, work quartz sand into the primer. The application of the waterproofing system can now begin. Use 5 kilogram containers when waterproofing the details. To mix Kemperol 2K pour, open component A, scrape the lid clean, and stir the material thoroughly. Then knock a hole in the component B container, plus an air hole to ensure that the container is emptied completely. Mix together components A and B until the mixture is completely free from any streaks. To avoid any mixing inconsistencies, tip the finished Kemperol 2K pour into another container. Do not forget to empty the container completely. The working time depends on the ambient temperature. At 20 degrees Celsius, it is 30 minutes. When the temperature is below 10 degrees Celsius, mix in an accelerator additive. The details are waterproofed first. To do this, apply the Kemperol resin evenly with a brush or nylon roller. The amount corresponds to 2/3 of that required for the vent detail. Place the prepared pieces of fleece in position and apply more resin. Press the fleece down. Apply more resin and brush out any air bubbles. Make sure that the strips of fleece are pressed down onto the surface of the roof. Now apply resin around the vent. Place the second piece of fleece over the vent without damaging the first fleece already laid and covered. Press down onto the substrate and brush smooth. Make sure that there are no folds. Continue to apply resin with the nylon roller until the fleece is completely saturated. Finally, apply more material with the brush and carefully brush out any air bubbles or folds. That completes the vent detail. When waterproofing the edge of the roof, resin is applied to the surface first. As an alternative to the method just shown, it is possible to dip the pieces of fleece completely in the resin and gently squeeze them out before placing them into position. It is important to ensure that pieces of fleece are positioned properly at internal and external corners and brushed flat. Kemperol 2K pour is always applied using the two-coat method. Firstly, 2/3 of the material required is applied to the surface. The fleece is rolled out onto the wet material. Secondly, the remaining 1/3 of the amount required is subsequently applied to ensure that the fleece is completely saturated. Again, carefully brush out any air bubbles or folds. The roll of fleece is cut to suit along the edges to ensure proper and complete waterproofing. The double layer of reinforcement at the corners is clearly visible here. Apply the resin. Lay the fleece in this and press down. Brush out any air bubbles. Kemperol 2K pour is applied to the top edge of the roof in the same way. That completes the roof edge detail. This is our safety harness fixing. Apply Kemperol 2K pour around the screws. Soak the fleece screw covers in the resin and wipe off the excess. Cover the screws. This step ensures a homogeneous waterproofing detail around the screw fixings. Press the fleece down again with the brush. Here again, the fleece for wrapping the post is soaked directly in the resin. Wipe off the excess and lay in position with 50mm overlaps at the ends. Press down and smooth out with the brush. Apply the resin around the safety harness fixing first. Then slip over the second piece of fleece and lay it in position. Gaps were left for the screws when cutting the fleece to the right shape beforehand. Now apply more resin with the nylon roller. Take special care around the heads of the screws. Brush out all air bubbles with the brush. Take extra care to ensure that no resin runs into the drainage outlet, therefore spread the resin very carefully. Soak the pieces of fleece and wipe off the excess resin so that none can run into the drainage outlet. The tapering cut enables the pieces of fleece to overlap equally. Lay these one by one over the edge of the roof drainage outlet and press them into place. Finally, brush them with resin once again and eliminate any air bubbles. When waterproofing the main surface of the roof, apply resin around the drainage outlet first. Then roll out the fleece over the outlet. Cut the fleece in a criss-cross fashion over the outlet, which has already been waterproofed, and cut out a piece about 10mm larger than the outlet. Now apply more resin with the nylon roller and press down. This ensures that the drainage outlet is waterproofed properly and completely. On the air duct of the air conditioning plant, it is once again important to take care of the corners properly. In this case too, we shall soak the pieces of fleece first. Place the fleece in position and press down with the brush. Afterwards, spread Kemperol on the duct surface. Lay the fleece already cut to size carefully in position and unroll it. Apply more resin and in doing so brush out any folds or air bubbles. Cut the fleece to suit at the corner and fold it around the corner. Proceed similarly on the other sides and edges of the air duct. Clearly visible here is the double layer of reinforcement at the transition to the roof surface. Once the fleece has been wrapped around the air duct, the 50mm provided at the end of the fleece for reinforcement is tucked under the start of the fleece. This creates a good joint. press down again with your hand and then smooth out with a nylon roller. Apply liquid material around the air duct for a distance equal to the width of the roll of fleece, and then lay the fleece in this. Overlap this in such a way to produce a rectangle of fleece around the duct. Apply more liquid material and brush out any air bubbles. Every detail can be waterproofed properly and completely with Kemperol 2K Pour. After all details have been waterproofed, we proceed to waterproofing the main surface of the roof. First, pour about 2/3 of the Kemperol 2K Pour directly from the container onto the roof surface and spread it evenly with the nylon roller. Align the roll of fleece with the edge of the roof. Round off the corners. Use the nylon roller to flatten the fleece against the substrate and eliminate all air bubbles. Now pour out the remaining 1/3 of the resin and spread it over the surface evenly. Eliminate any remaining air bubbles. Pour more resin directly from the container onto the roof surface and spread it evenly. Roll out the fleece into the liquid Kemperol 2K Pour and press it down with a nylon roller. Add more resin and work into the fleece until it is completely saturated. When using Kemperol 2K Pour, we pour out 2/3 of the material first and add 1/3 afterwards. Moving on to the adjacent section of roof, once again the resin is spread evenly. Flatten the start of the fleece with the roller before adding the remaining material. The overlaps between the adjoining sections of fleece must be at least 50 mm. They must be properly soaked and worked in. It is advisable to work with 12.5 kg containers when waterproofing large areas. Details already waterproofed, like this vent, are worked around when waterproofing the main surface. To do this, cut a square out of the roll of fleece. Don't forget to leave at least 50 mm for overlaps. As always, lay the fleece in the wet material, add more resin, and eliminate all folds and air bubbles. Gradually, every square meter of the roof surface is waterproofed in succession. Everything is permanently waterproofed thanks to the double layer of reinforcement. A surface waterproofed with Kemperol 2K Pour requires a curing time of about 72 hours, depending on the weather. However, the surface can be walked on